Hello there, I am Shaun McLaren, and today I will continue exploring the monocolored decks of Modern with 8-Rack. So, 8-Rack is a very focused deck, and it is focused on getting your opponent to have no cards in hand, and then winning with the Rack and Shrieking Affliction, which when your opponent has no cards in hand, they both do three damage to your opponent on their upkeep. So those are your win conditions: the Rack and Shrieking Affliction. Everything else in the deck is pretty much designed to make your opponent discard cards, or possibly kill their creatures, or possibly both. So you have Thoughtseize and Inquisition, which are pretty standard discard spells, the best Modern has to offer pretty much. And then after that, we're kind of scraping the bottom of the barrel a little more. Well, the middle of the barrel, not the bottom of the barrel, with Raven's Crime, which isn't fantastic, but can make land heavy draws go from terrible to actually pretty good. And then we have Funeral Charm, which is instant speed discard, which is usually very rare because it's powerful, making your opponent discard on their draw step, since that's a very annoying effect, not to be able to cast the creature that you drew that turn. Funeral Charm is also reasonable removal. Kills things with 1 toughness, and you can even use it to pump up a Mutavault or a Death Shadow, or even give Swamp Walk, which is relevant because you have Herborg, which turns things into swamps, but 90% of the time you're probably just making your opponent discard. Maybe not quite 90, but pretty close. So Smallpox is one of the best cards in the deck. It's great because you don't run creatures, and your opponent probably does. So you're getting value by making them sacrifice a creature, and you're keeping them low on resources. You're denying them land, and as you can see, the curve of the deck is actually very low, so you sacrificing your own lands isn't as much of a deal compared to them sacrificing theirs usually. It also incentivizes you to be on the draw in most matchups, because your opponent's more likely to cast a creature by turn 2, and then you Smallpox to get value. And just being on the draw, if your opponent mulligans, makes it very good as well, since you'll have to make them discard fewer cards. So Wrenchmind is one of the few ways for the deck to actually get rid of 2 cards in one fell swoop. Of course, it's not very good if your opponent has an artifact in hand, or if they're playing Affinity. Dismember is just really solid creature removal, and usually you are going to have to get rid of some amount of creatures. And then Liliana, of course, ties the whole deck together as well, as a super powerful card acting as removal or reoccurring card discard. Urborgs are going to be great because we have Mutavaults. Mutavaults are just going to be great for either blocking a creature, trading when your opponent has let a creature slip through your discard spells, or just picking away at the life total once you've cast all your spells and your opponent is hellbent and out of cards, you can start attacking them with Mutavaults. Blinkmoth is just a much worse Mutavault, and might not even be worth it, but I'm getting greedy and playing Blinkmoth, and you can actually pump up your Mutavaults with Blinkmoth, which is pretty nice as well. That's pretty much the main deck. Pretty straightforward. Just make your opponent discard their cards, and then play your racks. Although, what cards you make your opponent discard can actually be fairly tricky, and it's a surprisingly skill-testing deck. Testing different skills, though. It's more, what am I making my opponent discard? What could they draw that's really bad for me? And what does their next turn look like if I make them discard this? That sort of thing. So the sideboard, Death Shadows are pretty much for burn, almost purely, since they're going to have to burn you out as quickly as possible while you're trying to make them discard their cards, and then you just drop a giant Death Shadow and hopefully win the game that way. Disfigure is just solid removal against any weenie decks. It's cheap, it's good. Relic for the graveyard, same with ley lines. It might be better to run more ley lines. I like relics though. Ensnaring Bridge is excellent against bigger creature decks. Pretty terrible against Ancient Grudge in particular, but can catch some people off guard. Not as great if they already are bringing in artifact removal for the rack, though. And then Night of Souls Betrayal is mostly for Infect, but can catch some other weenie decks off guard. It is a little slow, though. Yeah, that's pretty much the deck, so let's hop right into some games.